So I just want to say one thing. Thank you. Jillian, can you read? So Jillian, I just want you to know that I know it was humming along, but I'm scheduled for 2 p.m. and I'm here on time. Jillian tweeted, Social Data Week was moving right along, but GaryVee running late derailed the passing of the torch. Now, I know that this was running 15 minutes ahead, which is incredible. You guys are crushing it, but I just want to I don't want to lose any brand equity that anybody thinks that I was running late or that I think I'm so cool to be late for something. I would never do that, and so I just wanted to make that public statement to start this talk. And you know what's interesting? That's probably like, you actually did me a humongous favor, so I'm gonna hug it out with you afterwards, because really what just happened is actually what I think about when I think about this whole world, which is, my friends, we have more than enough data for the rest of our lives, right? Like, big data's awesome and I'm all in. I hear about data every day. I think about it all the time. It's how I built WineLibrary.com. I launched an e-commerce wine business in 1996. My advantage was the fact that I used data. My advantage was that I innovated and did things before everybody else. My advantage was the fact that I bought the keyword wine on Google for 5 cents for 9.5 months before anybody bid me up, because nobody in liquor wine retail knew what they were doing. So I've always done this, right? My advantages was fast moving, collecting the data and responding. My entire relevance to this space, why Robert had those nice things to say about me, is predicated on one thing. It's a site called Surmise.com. How many nerds in the crowd remember Surmise.com? Just raise your hands, I'm curious. So for the 9 of you, you remember Surmise.com was really the first Twitter search engine. And I was nobody in tech in 2007 when I jumped on Twitter. I had started this wine video blog show called Wine Library TV to expand my business. Again, me innovating, jumping on YouTube a couple months after it launched. And I wanted to reach more audience. So I jumped on Surmise.com. Let me just give you my normal day in 2007. Come into the wine store to give you context, because I know a lot of you don't know me, I had just run for 5 years and taken from a $3 to a $45 million business, right? So it's a real business. We made it. You know, it was my family business. And I shifted into coming in the morning, spending an hour looking at the numbers, making sure everything was set for the day, and then prepping for my wine show, taping it, airing it, getting it online, and then spending between 7 to 11 hours a day on Surmise.com, when Twitter did not have that many users, and searching people saying red wine, Pinot Noir, Bordeaux, and jumping into every conversation and creating context, right? And so back then it was like, who is this guy? They'd look at my profile, they'd click on the link, which took them to my show, and that was my gateway. And my gateway was very important. I wasn't acting like what I call the 19-year-old dude. Just because somebody said drinking red wine tonight, I wasn't saying, oh, buy it from WineLibrary.com. I asked them which wine, right? I wasn't trying to close on the first tweet. And I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble. And so that's what I did. And I did that every day for 2 years, all the time, until there was some sort of scale of relevance. And it gets me to my main point, which is this. You can have data for days, and everybody does. I run a social media agency now, and we have 25 Fortune 500 companies, and we have data. We have tons of data. We have tons of access to data. I've teamed up with these guys. I have data now on all my users, which I'm using very effectively. I have an amazing database. I've teamed up with these guys. I have a full database of everybody who's ever tweeted at me in the last 2 years. A personal CRM to my 999,000 followers, right? That's how close I am. You know, and I have them all. And I have the 200,000 that really care and have engaged with me. And it's perfectly organized, and we have it structured. And have they ever mentioned the book? And how many times? And how many times have I DM'd with them? And everything, gorgeous, clean, perfect. But now what? I took the entire month of August off, for the most part, to spend some time with the kids, but I was engaging off of that data set. I had to put in the work. Data's phenomenal, and it's important. And a lot of people here understand it way better than I do and understand how to structure it. But we have to understand, as our data, and as we're getting better at it, and as companies like Zynga and Groupon and Living Social and many others have figured out angles and ways to run the data efficiently, cost spends, what's your acquisition versus, all these great things that you can do, I would say that data, where we are today, is an amazing place for hunting. I would say we've mapped. I would even make the argument that we've mapped hunting for new customers. But the real game is farming. The real game isn't hunting. The real game's farming. We're gonna be able to acquire users. We're gonna be able to get them. We have the data on them. They're putting it out for us. We can get to them. But now what? How do you actually bring them value? To me, this whole sector and this whole mindset is not about can we get it or how do we get it. Far majority of you know it. I just walk through that nerd room. There's plenty of nerds out there, they get it. We can get the data. We can get it clean. We can get it to a place of execution. But I implore everybody in this room collectively to understand what to do with it next. Because you can be the best at gathering it, but if you don't teach and educate your consumers or the people that are activating against that data to know what to do with it, you've lost. You can create the greatest tool of all time, but if people don't know how to use it, you've lost. And so I promise you, people have built things that in theory are probably in some ways better than a fork or a spoon or a screwdriver or a hammer and all these things. But unless you know how to storytell and explain to them what to do with it, those things weren't able to win. And so what I'm passionate about, what I'm spending a lot of time on is what do we actually do with it once we have it? And now you get into the part that a lot of people, my best friends, all my MIT nerds, don't like talking about, the humanity of all this, right? Fine, you've got it to a certain point, but now we have to act human on top of the data. And so that's what I do. I acted human with that tweet right now. It was there for me, right? And it was there for me to do something with, and I did it to create context for everybody in this room, but more importantly, I really wanted to make sure she knew that I wasn't late, because that one person, and I'm being serious, it's kind of funny. You know what's so funny? Everybody thinks scale is sexy, and I'm obsessed with things that aren't scalable. That's where the magic is. Scale's a commodity. Everybody can play that game. It's the unscalable where all the money, the magic, the upside is right now. And so it might not be scalable for me to leave this conference right now and look at the hashtag and see all of you that talked about this talk and then reply to you, wink, thank you, say hello, say, oh, I'm glad you got to see me speak for the first time, or what's up, or this, that, and the other thing. But that's exactly what I'm gonna do unless I have an emergency or something else, right? Not scalable, but it's the effort that matters. From 2006 to 2010, 2011, I answered every single tweet and every single email. It's literally what I did for a living. And then the math beat me. It became unscalable. I had children. I started to build another business, which is taking up a lot of my time. But the effort of that and the infrastructure, it came about me building what Seth Godin would call a tribe and building relationships with people that care about what you talk about. Every time something happens, for example, here's a good story. My sister had her first child. So I was out of the pocket for 2 days because that was an important family event. Somebody during that time tweeted, GaryVee, you really sold out. I used to be able to tweet you and you'd answer me in a minute. I've tweeted you 3 times in the last 2 days. You haven't replied to me. Hashtag jerk. Me, even though listen, this is what loving the unscalable does. Me, even though my sister has a baby and I'm spending a lot of time, I'm paying attention to everything. I'm just not responding. I'm trying to save seconds. I saw that tweet before I could get in there. And the tweet was 12 minutes old. 700 of my fans dismantled that human being. Hey, fuckface, his sister had a child, and all things that look like that. What I think people are grossly underestimating, especially in the context of this conversation, where there's a lot of technical thinking, there's a lot of efficiency thinking, there's a lot of great stuff. Because by the way, it's all EQ and IQ. That's what the whole world's about. It's never black. Guys, the world is gray. There's no black and white. Right? And so like you have a whole world that I hate because I'm in the agency world now where everybody thinks it's about creative. Like you have a great idea and you win some award in France and that's gonna make it happen. And then that's horseshit. And then you've got this world where I can get more around it because it's so quantifiable evidence, right? You do the right thing with the data and it ends a result and it's just math. And math is pure, right? But the problem is there's a comma after that moment. And that's where the humanity and the other side come in. And so what we need to be thinking about is we can lead the horses to the well, we can build the best products, we can have the cleanest data, but they have to act on it, right? Like a basketball is perfect, right? But if you can't put it in the hoop, it didn't do much for you. And that's really important for us to always remember because all of us are vulnerable to how people act on our data. All of us. And so what we need to start understanding is the world we really live in. And in a world where data is really clean and great and very noisy, people are getting pounded more efficiently. I am thrilled that now most of the advertisement that I see is wine-centric, or about the New York Jets, or about Lionel Richie. You know, I'm happy. He's underrated. I'm happy that they know my interest. I prefer it. I don't like going to ESPN.com and seeing a whiskey ad. I don't drink whiskey. I know I'm an 18 to 40-year-old dude, but I don't fucking drink at ESPN, right? I get it. So I'm glad that it's getting more targeted in this, that, and the other thing. But the fact of the matter is there's a ton of noise. We're living in an ADD culture. The way to break through and get to somebody comes at this speed. How do you get to them? How do you get to them? So yes, you can get to the data. You can lead me as a business or an advertiser or an entrepreneur to that moment. You can get me there, but then I have to know what to say, right? Data is an amazing gateway to attention. Attention is the holy grail of selling a story, but not knowing what story to tell in the context of that moment is why most people fail. And more importantly, even if they're good at that part, we have to understand that we are now in a living and breathing 24/7, 365 society where we need to deliver value to people in many different ways at all times. And so what do we do with our data? Because you can give me data that my customer, it's their birthday, right? I could know it's their birthday, but what do I do next? Do I send them an email with free shipping on shit that day? Hey, it's your birthday, Johnny, free shipping on us. Free shipping's become a commodity, right? I mean, things are moving. We have to evolve, right? 1999, I did free shipping for WineLibrary.com. It was the first time I did it. To this day, it's one of the top 10 selling days in the history of my company. Back then, we were a $4 million company. Now we're a $60 million company. Still, top 10 day. You know why? Supply and demand. Nobody was really doing it. This was pre-Amazon Prime. People were buying wine that day like the wine had the cure inside of the bottles, right? Me living in this thank you economy that I kind of live in, the gray, one guy ordered like 30 cases, and in the notes it said, thank you for doing this, Wine Library. I'm buying this wine for my daughter's wedding. Me, it was so busy, I didn't sleep for 2 days, and we were a small company, so I was packing orders. Serendipitously, I got that order with that gift note. So I stepped away, went to my office, and I called him. And I said, Jim, thank you so much for ordering 20, 30 cases of wine. I mean, that's a lot. This is for your daughter's wedding. This is amazing. I said, I'd like to send you a nice bottle of champagne in addition on me. Tell me where I can send it, right? This is where you guys think the story ends. It gets way better. He goes, oh, no, Gary. My daughter's 12. I said, what? He said, yeah, my daughter's 12 years old, but this deal is so sick, I'm gonna put this wine and keep it in the cellar until her wedding day. Now, all of us here, us cynical shoppers, we don't buy shit unless it has free shipping, right? Because the game changed. The great work that a lot of people and a lot of companies in this company are doing is gonna make data incredible. And it's gonna give marketers and entrepreneurs an ability to drive even new experiences, better experiences. But then marketers ruin everything. And it's gonna become a commodity once people understand. And so what we need to understand is this. There is a two-pronged attack to all this. So building great tools is great. But we need to learn from the companies, and I'll give you a good one. A great company for a lot of the tech companies in here, because I'm trying to talk to different groups in here, is a company like Buddy Media, right? Like forget about the fact they had a big exit. Their product was dramatically behind their story, and even more importantly, behind their service. And there's a lot to learn from that. And I think we should really think about that, which was, we could build great tools, we could do all these things, but to me, the game is the execution. What do you do with that point of purchase, of that moment in time, that date, that event? And we have to start really having that argument. Ironically, today is such an interesting day for me. This has been my whole game for about 2 years now. I'm pounding this conversation of IQ and EQ. I'm an EQ guy. I won all my business in my life based on I understand people and customers. It's what, that's who I am, right? I failed math, right? But I built an e-commerce business, and a very special day happened. Let me tell you a quick story about 2001. 2001, one of my developers comes in, he goes, Gary, listen, real quick. He said, if we change the add to cart button to orange, we're gonna get a 22% increase in sales. And I looked at him and I said, get out of my office, nerd. Stick to what you know. And he goes, I thought you'd say that. He goes, I've been A/B testing it behind your back. And I said, get the fuck out of my office. And he left. This is a true story. He left, that's what I said, but he was my boy. He knew I was kind of joking, I think. I went in the bathroom, washed my face, looked myself directly in the mirror and said, the thing that you're great at is about to become more commoditized because there's another way to do it. And from that moment on, I always respected data and other things as part of the equation, not the only part. The problem is, in the world that I live in, with the agency side, especially being tech and social, you've got this world that values this stuff so much, it's the game. You guys laugh at the creatives. It's silly that you think, like, this is math, you can't beat us, right? Over here, they think like nerds, like who gives a shit? It's all about like the pizzazz, right? Like that's fine, but like it's gonna take a long time to change, and the magic's in the middle, and we have to respect it. And it's ironic today that I just came from a Behance creative conference and drove uptown, and now I'm here. It's really my two worlds that I have a lot of passion for, and I think the people in this room that can, I'll use a funny reference, that can like cross over, political lines to the other side and understand the marriage of these two phenomenons that are the end result of proper storytelling in 2014 will win. We have to respect the data, but we have to respect the creative, but most important, the third part, the part that I personally, this little sliver in between, the context of the room that you're in. The thing that I have a lot of passion for and what I do for a living is I'm trying to storytell where customers actually are. And customers are actually in their mobile devices on social networks. And so what I know is that Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, they're all very different. What I know is that way too many people in the world right now think of social networks as distribution, that you're doing something and you go to Facebook and do a status update to drive people towards it. That you tweet out a link towards it. That you make an animated GIF on Tumblr if you're really smart, but still you have a link towards it. And what I have a lot of passion for is actually storytelling within it. That Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Vine are places to actually tell a story. And that, as you guys know, the metrics are actually happening there on that platform, in those confines. And so what we have to do, and what you need to be thinking about from a data standpoint, is how to position the people that use your product to know how to tell a better story in the context. Meaning that you are gonna act very differently in a boardroom meeting than you are at home with your spouse, than you are with your best boys on a fun weekend. You're gonna act very differently in all those places, yet you're still the same person. And all these platforms need that kind of thinking and awareness and emotional data to understand, not just black and white data. Thank you. I'm sorry? How much of my talk did you hear? 0.